Hello, guys, gals, and non-binary pals, and welcome to the Fae Realm. We're doing something a little bit different today. I wanted to do this yesterday. The overlay gods did not smile upon me, but as you can see, I have a new overlay that I have specifically for this game. I am playing Call of Cthulhu all by my lonesome. I've been playing with Quest and Chaos Call of Cthulhu for about 5 years now. And I've played through Masks of Nyarlathotep, I've played Down Darker Trails, I'm currently playing Horror on the Orient Express, but this time I get to do it all by myself. So I am playing Dr. Eleanor Woods, figure out which hand is which. This is her, and as you can see, my hat kind of matches hers, which I love. So there's going to be a lot of reading in this particular stream because it is effectively the solo modules in Call of Cthulhu are basically glorified choose your own adventure books. So I will not be showing the entire thing for all of y'all to read, mostly because I don't know how to clip it well enough so you can't see all of the other choices that could happen. And it gives me a chance to really do more of the voice acting stuff that I pretend to do for a job or whatever. Some things to note about the way that solo Call of Cthulhu works as opposed to the group Call of Cthulhu. The combat has been very much simplified, so there's no opposed rolls. It's just, do you succeed or fail? And if you succeed or fail, do you get a regular, hard, or critical success? And if you fail, did you critically fail? Which are some of the more interesting choices. So I also had 70 points that I could spend on my sheet. Knowing that the name of this thing is Alone Against the Tide, I probably should have put some points into swim. I didn't, but I should have, but I didn't. So we're going to see if Eleanor survives this. I did put more points into stealth, listen, intimidate, and climb, for those who are curious. And I rolled very well on luck. I rolled a 15 on the 3d6. I rolled 15 on the 3d6, which when multiplied by 5 is 75 luck. So she might survive a little bit longer. Adidas Fiend says, "Beh, who needs swim? We all float down here." It's true, especially when you're dealing with the kinds of critters that we're going to be dealing with. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and roll into this. All right, Alone Against the Tide. I just got a notification pop up about an ad break, but I'm not seeing an ad break on the live stream over here. So maybe it's going to pop up in like 2 minutes. Hard to say. I'm going to keep an eye on that because I'm a brand new affiliate and I'm still figuring out how all of this stuff works. So, shrugs forever. We'll see how this goes. All right. Our story begins sometime in the 1920s on the pier opposite the lakeside resort town of Esbury, Massachusetts. Your investigator's reasons for visiting the town are discussed in the relevant entries. I've read through the introduction and the getting started sections, and now I am going to number 1. The sun sinks low on the horizon as you board the ferry headed across the lake to Esbury. As you set foot on the boat, the ferryman greets you with a wide smile and a cheery wave. He stands by the gangplank as you pass, welcoming the other passengers as he removes his cap to scratch at his balding head. His pudgy figure fills his well-worn suit. He looks a little awkward, but he seems a rather pleasant sort. Leaving the man behind you, you take a seat toward the prow, eyes fixed on your destination. And then it says, go to 12. So we scroll on down to 12. Here we go. You settle into a seat with your thin briefcase resting on your lap, noticing that the rest of the passengers are likewise getting comfortable for the short trip across the lake. Glancing around, you catch sight of the ferryman entering the cabin. As you sit patiently and wait for the engine to come to life, you listen to the sounds of idle chatter around you. You look out across the water and notice a thin fog beginning to form over the surface of the water as the temperature drops with the approach of night. After a few minutes, you hear the engine sputter into action and feel the ferry lurch forward. The conversations around you continue as the ferryman joins you all on deck. You can't help overhearing most of the talk, though it's surprisingly banal. There are almost a dozen passengers on the ferry. Most of them are simply looking to spend their money during their weekend in Esbury and to enjoy the various shops and leisure activities in the lakeside town the lakeside town has to offer. Many of the passengers seem to come from money, as is common in Esbury. You notice a strange look from one of the women in the group. She has a full figure and brown hair and eyes. She seems to be looking you over, admiring your features. And then there's a whole thing in here about if you are creating your own investigator, you go through all of your assigning your stats. I'm using the pre-gen. So that's so that is Eleanor. And yes, as I said, so for her, let's see. Her strength is 50, con is 60, size is 50, dex is 60, appearance is 40, education is 80, intelligence is 70, POW is 50, in case folks are curious. All right, so from here, I roll to 80. The woman clearly sees something in you that she likes. Perhaps it's your looks, or a glint of intelligence in your eyes. She gives you a sly wink before turning back to her companions. You likewise turn your attention to the rest of the passengers. Sitting apart from the general crowd are two men in dark, well-tailored suits, whispering quietly to each other. They have unamused expressions on their faces, as if they don't seem pleased to be here. Perhaps they're on business. Noticing that you're sitting alone, the ferryman approaches you and stands over you with his characteristic smile. You notice he's missing a tooth in the upper left corner of his mouth. His eyes are bright as they light upon you. Good afternoon. You look a bit lonely there, friend. What brings you to Esbury? If you are creating your own investigator, it is now time to choose an occupation. List of occupations. There's a whole slew of them that you can do with suggested occupations, blah, blah, blah. There are a whole bunch of choices depending on what background and profession I've chosen. Since I am playing Dr. Woods, I'm going to bounce over to 23. This is why I'm not showing this whole thing, because I'm getting dizzy just reading it. All right. You mentioned the passing of a distant colleague in Esbury and how you've been sent by Miskatonic to recover his work and bring it back to the university. The man sighs and nods slowly. You mean Professor Harris. Real shame what happened to him. Always seemed like such a nice man. Officer Powell says they're still cleaning up the mess at the professor's place, but some of the more valuable bits will probably be at the estate sale tonight, if you're really wanting it. The man looks down at his hands for a moment, and then back at you as he extends one your way. Anyway, I'm Lance Sanford. Pleased to meet you, but I wish it were under better circumstances, eh? So I can inquire about Professor Harris, inquire about Officer Powell, ask Lance Sanford about himself, ask about the estate sale, or pass the time waiting to arrive in Esbury. I think I'm going to start by asking about Professor Harris. That takes me down to 27. The ferryman raises a questioning eyebrow at you. Professor Harris? I can't say much, really. I didn't know him all that well, but he seemed like a nice guy. I was sad to hear that he died. You gently press for more information about his death. Sanford frowns, but answers. Officer Powell says it's suicide. I'm inclined to believe him, but Professor Harris seemed happy enough to me. More than content to relax in Esbury like anyone else. In between his studies, of course. Ancient Indian history, I think it was. I had coffee with the professor a few weeks ago, and he talked my ear off about it. I couldn't understand half of what he said, but he was quite excited by whatever it was. You exchange a few more pleasantries with Sanford before he goes off to finish guiding the boat into port. You pass the time in casual conversation with the other passengers and in observing the scenery. You note the tall pines and the sloping hills along the lakeshore around Esbury. These features and the small town beyond are just visible through the growing mist, but squinting helps make them out to your satisfaction. In time, you arrive on the pier at Esbury, grateful to be off the water. Boy, that feels like foreshadowing. We're off the water for now. Dun, dun, dun. All right, we bounce up to 3. You take your first steps onto the pier with the rest of the ferry passengers, trying to get your land legs once again. The passengers still chat casually as they walk off to their destinations. You note one last little flirty wink from the full-figured woman as she struts along confidently behind the women accompanying her, and you feel the 2 dark-suited men push past you at a brisk pace, nudging you out of their way. Sanford gives you one last wave and a smile as he begins tending to the old rust-stained boat that is his pride and joy. The last of the light is fading fast, and the fog is growing thick on the water now. The night is still young, but you would rather not be wandering around in the dark and fog of a town you are unfamiliar with. Taking in your surroundings, you see a sizable crowd jockeying for entrance into a lavish, modern-looking building along the lakeside. A folding sign sits out front, illuminated by a lantern. The words, "Estate Sale Tonight," are written on it in large, bold letters. While this seems to be the main attraction, you could also seek out somewhere to stay for the night and set about your work in the morning. I've already set my secondary characteristics. So I can go to the estate sale or I can find somewhere to stay for the night. I think it's true, Adidas Fiend. Old estate sales do have old books, and this is a professor's estate sale. So I feel like I have to go and see what's going on here, right? Let's go see. 15. All right, so I'm going to set up a thing quickly because I think I might need this in a minute. Ancient Indian history, correct, which is actually going to be relevant here in a moment. Let's see if I can't get this size the way I want it. Sure, that'll do. All right. Pushing through the crowd, you make your way toward the estate sale. Judging by the number of people packing into the dance hall, this seems to be quite the event. Most of the people here are well-dressed, with conspicuous amounts of jewelry and designer clothing on display. You see a broad-shouldered man in a policeman's uniform standing by the door. He has a scarred yet clean-shaven face and a baton at his side. His brow is furrowed in a serious expression, and he watches the commotion through narrow eyes. As you mingle with the assorted academics and collectors, you notice a few other faces that stand out in the crowd. Most immediately, I'm going to do a quick fade over here. Yeah, that should work great. You spot a man in flowing orange robes with tawny skin. He seems more than a little out of place and is garnering some odd looks from the other guests. Glancing around further, you happen to notice the 2 dark-suited gentlemen from earlier standing in a corner toward the front of the room, talking to a young, dark-haired man in a dated yet elegant long coat. He is of slight build and has rather sharp features. A thin wisp of a mustache hangs beneath his nose. Most noticeable, though, is the rather attractive young woman standing on stage at the front of the room next to a bespectacled old man. Long black hair cascades down her shoulders, accentuating her pale features and complementing her formal black dress. Occasionally, she and the older gentleman peek at objects hidden beneath white sheets, the sale items waiting to be displayed. All right, so I can mingle with the crowd of guests, speak to the officer at the back of the room, approach the man in orange, introduce myself to the dark-suited men who shoved me as we were getting off the boat, make my way toward the stage and the woman, or leave the hall and find a place to stay for the night. I think I already have him visible, so I might as well go chat with the man in orange. So that is 102. You approach the strange man. He seems well-traveled and weary, and his long orange robes are a stark contrast to the fine suits and dresses of the New England financial elite. He seems decidedly out of place. You open your mouth as if to speak, and find him staring intensely at you. Make an anthropology roll. If you succeed, go to 72. If you fail, go to 37. All right, first real roll of the game. Let's see, which dice do I want to use? All right, so her anthropology is a 60. Ooh, and then I roll an 4, so that is a critical success. Yeah, we're trying not to have a river on this up in this house, but I got an 4, so I did good. So 272. Off we go. You recognize the man's style of dress to be that of a Buddhist monk. You bow a customary greeting, to which the monk smiles and returns the gesture before speaking in heavily accented but fluent English. It is good to see one here with such respects for our customs. I am Banyo. His expression turns to a frown as he makes a sweeping gesture to the rest of the room. The rest here seem only to seek to profit from my culture. Selling the items of my ancestors is most shameful. You respectfully question why he would come such a long way to witness such a thing, and he sighs before turning back to you. I have come with what money my temple could gather, so that I might save a certain few of the artifacts, ones that your Professor Harris stole from my temple in Sarnath when he came to visit some years ago. The monk seems troubled and falls silent. He bows a farewell, and you take the cue to leave. All right, so we bounce over to 17. You have begun gathering information in Esbury. Would you like to interact some more? And here I have the list of possibilities that I can do. So this is like where I'll be bouncing back to over the course of this information gathering activity. I think I'm going to speak to the officer at the back of the room, and auspiciously, his number is 88. We love that. You turn around and backtrack toward the entrance to the ballroom. Something about the officer by the door catches your attention and holds it. He gives off a commanding presence, and his eyes bore into you intensely as you make your way over to him. As you move within earshot, he rests his hand on his baton and clears his throat. I really hope there isn't going to be any sort of problem, citizen. I wouldn't want to see anyone getting hurt tonight. His hand does not move from his baton. Make a psychology roll. If you succeed, Do I have anything in psychology? Yeah, I have 50 in psychology. Cool. Ooh. 29 is a regular success. All right, so 105. For an officer of the law, I know. Well, so Dr. Eleanor Woods is apparently a former gang member, and I guess in those sorts of instances, you need to be able to read people. Who'da thunk? For an officer of the law, Officer Powell possesses a rather thuggish disposition. He seems to be looking for a fight, and from the scars on his face, you can tell he's been in many. With his size, he does cut a rather intimidating figure. Still, the use of thinly veiled threats as an introduction is somewhat unnerving, and certainly not proper behavior for a moral and ethical man. It's probably best not to provoke this man, and it would be wise to avoid him as much as possible. Yeah, like that's going to be possible. I can tell just from that we're gonna be up against this guy fairly frequently. That's gonna be fun. All right, so we're bouncing back. I've begun gathering information in Esbury. I can do all of these if I want, I guess. We'll see. I'm going to mingle with the crowd of guests, which takes me to 34. Rather than single any one or anything in particular out, you feel it would be best to use your time to get a general impression and speak to multiple people to get their points of view. Hearing the talk around the room, you come to understand that most of the people who have gathered here are merely treating this as a social event. However, there are a fair number of academics and collectors in attendance as well. Excuse me. Judging by the relative wealth of the townsfolk, you imagine that there will be a lot of bids placed on the items. While walking among the guests, you happen to notice a pair of men conversing in hushed tones. They seem to be trying to avoid being overheard, but a keen ear might be able to catch what is being said. And make a listen roll. Oh, I'm glad I put more into listen at the top. Not enough, though. All right, so my listen is currently at 40, and I rolled 44. I could spend luck to make it happen, because I have 75 luck. Or I can let the dice fall where they did. Where did I put my pencil? I had a pencil. All right, I think I'm going to go ahead and spend some luck. So I'm down from 75 to 71 luck. All right, so with a success, I go to 2, all the way back up at the top. You position yourself close to the men and tune your ears to their conversation. Between you and me, I heard that most of these items are fake, outright hoaxes and counterfeits. Harris was a doddering old nut. He claimed that his findings predate the earliest known records of ancient India, but that's impossible. They're completely inconsistent with all of the other data. And besides, there's a reason why he left the Miskatonic, if you catch my meaning. The other man nods his approval. You aren't wrong. His findings aren't properly supported by evidence, yet he kept trying to publish his hogwash. I imagine that's why they had him resign. Still, at least a few of the items might be authentic, so hopefully this won't be a total waste of time. The first man shifts his stance and lowers his volume slightly again to where it is just perceptible. Maybe. And that monk over there does seem to lend some sort of validity to your claim. If an actual Indian wants them, perhaps there's something valuable here. Yes, indeed. You aren't wrong. Drink. And actually, hilariously, because I'm playing Call of Cthulhu today, I am drinking Samantha tea today. Because while it is Call of Cthulhu rather than Delta Green, it's still in the same family. All right. All right, that is that conversation. So bounce back down to 17 to continue listening into people and chatting with people. Let's see, I've mingled, I've talked to the officer, I've chatted with Bunyo. I'm gonna go introduce myself to the dark-suited men. Why not? They were rude, but, you know, maybe they were just focused. You approach the huddled group and introduce yourself to them, stating that you recognize them from the ferry. The 2 men from earlier appeared annoyed at your presence and are visibly irritated. Well, scram, man. We don't know you. You got nothing to do with us. The third man seems likewise bothered and frowns at your intrusion. They certainly make you feel unwelcome. Ignoring you in hopes that you'll leave, the 2 men in suits turn their backs to you. You see the jacket of each suit shift oddly, as if it's ill-fitting. Make a spot hidden roll, everyone's favorite in Call of Cthulhu. Oh, I don't have anything extra in spot hidden. It's just 25. Oh, I'm screwed. Yeah, that's a 32. I failed that one, so 240. Yeah, it's spot hidden and library use. And I did check to make sure. Of course, the professor has at least reasonable library use, but I didn't double check the spot hidden. That's my bad. Oh well. You take the hint and decide to leave them be before they get truly angry. You turn back to the crowd and search for another distraction. I'm just gonna guess, with me knowing the way that jackets tend to fit people, I'm going to bet anything that they're armed under those jackets. Bounce back up to 17. All right, last one. To make my way toward the stage and the woman, go to 22. You make your way to the stage, navigating around the many guests in the dance hall. Your eyes lock firmly on the woman, and hers rise to meet yours as she looks up from peeking at one of the hidden objects. She stops what she's doing as you approach, and a smile appears on her lips as she notices that she's caught your eye. I know that that's written to be like for whichever gender, but I love that it's just so casually sapphic in the 1920s in Massachusetts. She rests her left hand on her hip as you come to stand at the foot of the stage. The old man behind her continues his inspections, either unaware or uncaring that you've come to distract them. The woman leans toward you over the edge of the stage. You can see her makeup has been painstakingly applied, despite her status as a recent widow. You clear your throat as you meet her gaze and promptly introduce yourself. She extends her hand to you formally. "Well, aren't you a new face in town?" she teases. "We get those quite a bit here. No doubt you plan to bid on some of my late husband's things. Good for both of us, I say. Just be sure to give a good price for little old me, all right?" She winks slyly at you. You realize now would be a good time to get some more information from this woman, who might be the most well-informed regarding your interests. She certainly seems like the flirty sort, and would probably respond well to more of the same. I'm terrified to look and see what Eleanor's charm is. Yep, I got the base of 15. Oh boy. Ha! And then I roll a 14. Go team. Oh my god. accidentally charismatic little professor girl. You take her hand in yours and bring it to your lips, keeping eye contact with her as you do so. She giggles, and her smile grows wider as she regards you with interest. "My, aren't you the charmer? If I weren't a widow, I'd be thrilled. But I still must mourn my husband, you understand. He was a stuffy old goat and obsessed with his studies. I have no problem selling his things, mind you, but that's because I need the money. A girl like me gets used to a certain standard of living, after all, but I can't very well go chasing after the first suitor who comes to replace him, no matter how fetching." She winks at you again and rests her hand on your arm and lowers her voice to a whisper. "But perhaps you could join me for a drink later. I have a little bit set aside for good company. I won't tell if you don't." She seals the conversation with a final wink before lifting her hand and turning back to the stage and its hidden artifacts. Go Eleanor! Go Eleanor! Sure. Yeah, we're totally gonna go to the widow's house and drink alcohol and probably get thrown out into the swamp somewhere. All right. Once you have chosen... Oops, I did more options than I should have. Whoops. Oh, well, because I didn't read the paragraph completely. Whatever. We're going to 34. Now that I've talked to everyone. I probably didn't actually have enough time to talk to everyone. That's fine. All right. Now I need to remember to read the paragraphs a little more thoroughly. But we're off to 35. The murmuring of the crowd dies down, and people begin to gather around the stage as Amelia and the older gentleman call everyone to attention. The widow strides confidently to the front of the stage where the lights are centered. She flashes a broad smile at the crowd and begins to speak. I'm just gonna go ahead and snooze that. Good evening, everyone. I'm so glad you all could make it tonight. As you all know, my husband recently passed, and, well, At this point, Amelia begins to tear up theatrically, so much so that her makeup begins to smear. She produces a handkerchief to dry her eyes before continuing. Well, I'm very upset. I miss my poor William very much, and I don't know what I'll do without him. And that's why I've brought you all here tonight. I hope you can find some use for his collection, and I know that he would be happy to see his things go to those who value them highly. I hope you'll show this poor widow a kindness by finding something you like. But now, let us begin. I'll leave the auctioning to Mr. Warren. With her opening statement complete, Amelia moves to stage left and allows the bespectacled old man, presumably Mr. Warren, to take center stage. He clears his throat before speaking. Tonight, we have 6 very ancient and very valuable items for sale from the estate of Professor William Harris. Though exceedingly strange, I have deemed these items to be authentic to the best of my ability. I have placed a ballot box, slips of paper, and a pencil on each of the 6 tables next to the item for sale. If you wish to bid on an item, simply write your name and the amount you are willing to pay for it on a slip, then place it in the box. The item will be sold to the highest bidder. All of the proceeds will go to the wife of the deceased. With that, Mr. Warren moves to reveal the gathered items. And we go to 70. Mr. Warren approaches the first table and removes the cloth covering to reveal an odd pair of clay cylinders covered with strange etchings. They are small and seem quite fragile, with large cracks running down their sides. Mr. Warren proceeds to the next table and likewise uncovers the item in question. This one is significantly larger and more ornate. It appears to be some sort of altar or reliquary, heavily decorated with green-yellow gemstones. However, there is one similarity with the first item, the presence of the same strange written characters, though these ones seem to have been painted on. The old scholar turns to the next item in question and displays it for all to see, a decorated crown of solid bronze, wrought with the image of a Hindu god. The next item is certainly the most mundane, a large, thick, leather-bound journal that appears well-worn and beaten, with several loose papers jammed between the pages. Mr. Warren senses the confusion of some members of the crowd and clarifies that the notebook is the assembled personal works and studies of Professor Harris. The item that follows the journal is a well-preserved ceremonial robe of a Brahmin priest. The cloth is pure white. The last item is perhaps the strangest of all. It is a small statue or idol, presumably one of the many deities of ancient India. Made from a blue-green stone in the shape of a rather grotesque lizard-like creature, the craftsmanship is crude and gaudy, so much so that it appears fake. People begin moving among the items, looking them over and conversing quietly. And it's time to make either an appraise or an archaeology roll. I don't have much in appraise. Archaeology, though, I have 70 in. Wow, that must be what her specialty is. All right. That is a 50 out of 70. So a success takes me to 45. You examine the items with a trained eye. The crown and ceremonial robe are obviously authentic and typical of what you would expect. They are in great condition and would certainly fetch a good price, though they are no rarer than any other antiquity. Likewise, Professor Harris's journal seems like it would be of value to a scholar, though a few delicate cursory page turns show that it contains personal accounts and travel logs, as well as historically relevant information. This is likely a good source of information on Professor Harris himself. However, the other items present are noticeably different. The altar and clay cylinders bear a similar script and both show comparable signs of aging and wear. Given this, they are unlikely to be fabrications, but they are unlike more traditional finds from ancient India. A close inspection of the lizard idol leads you to believe it is likewise verifiably authentic. Though the workmanship is strange and unnatural, that's the key word there, and clearly nothing like anything you've seen from ancient India or elsewhere, it doesn't bear any signs of work from modern tools or influence from modern styles either. Go to 81. You notice that you're not the only one looking over the items with such interest. The monk appears to be closely scrutinizing the stranger items as well, and the dark-suited gentleman from earlier seemed to have taken a liking to the curious idol. Apart from this, various other guests wander around the tables, occasionally fixing on one in particular. There are many guests, and a fair number of bids are being placed. If you would like to bid on any of the items, now is the time. All right, you'll be redirected to this entry after each choice, and you may choose to bid on any number of items. Please make each choice only once, and please note that each successful bid will lower your credit rating for future bids. All right, so I can bid on the clay cylinders, the altar, the crown, the journal, the robe, or the idol. So based on what was said, the crown, the robe, and the journal appear to be fairly normal for what my character would have known. Her credit rating is 60, and I currently have $300 in cash and $30,000 of assets, according to the part of the character sheet that I never fill out for these sorts of things. I think I am most interested at this moment in the cylinders because those fascinate me. Up to 24. You write a reasonable bid for the pair of clay cylinders and place it on the box. Shortly after you do so, Mr. Warren clears the box and begins checking the bids. Make an appraise or a credit rating roll, both at hard difficulty. But before we do that, apparently we're going to be going to an ad break in like 10 seconds. We'll see how this works. I've never done this before because new affiliate and everything. But we'll be back shortly. Or not, I guess. I have no idea what is going on with this, to be perfectly honest. All right, cool. I did not pause that. Oh, I see. Okay. All right, so in theory, I'm back. Please let me know if that is actually the case. Because These things are fun and weird, but I have no idea. Speaking of tea. Excellent. We appear to be back. Thank you all for actually, talking to me about all of this, because I am never entirely sure how this sort of thing works. All right. So, with my credit, I'm, as I said right before we went to the ad break, I'm making a bid on the pair of clay cylinders, and my credit rating is 60. But I have to make that check at hard. It is a hard difficulty check. So let's see if I can roll 30 or below. Yike! Not so much. That is a 92. So yeah, that's unfortunate. Though you wish to buy the curious clay cylinders, someone else placed a higher bid. You hear Mr. Warren announce the name Arthur Duncan and see one of the dark-suited pair approach to take the item from him. Go to 81. All right, well, I think I want to go for the strange idol next. Let's see if I can't get that one. Oof. Something draws you to the curious idol, and you feel compelled to make a bid. You notice that you're not alone in this, as the monk and one of the dark-suited men both place bids of their own into the box. You hope that yours is high enough. Make an appraise or credit rating roll, both at extreme difficulty. So for this one, I have to roll 12 or below. Great. Nope, that's a 75. So that's not going to do it. Where did it go? There it is. If you fail, go to 154. Though you put a sizable bid in for the idol, a truly outrageous sum is called, easily twice what you offered. Mr. Warren squints hard at the paper before calling out the staggering price and an unfamiliar sounding name. That's not true because I've met him. Banyo. Confused whispers break out as the orange-robed monk collects the statue with a look of excitement on his face. And back to 81. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get anything on here. Dang. I'm going to try for the altar next because that was the other one that I pinged as being strange. You decide on a fair bid for the gemstone-studded altar and submit your offer. Not long after, Mr. Warren empties the ballot box and begins sifting through the entries for the highest bid. This is another credit rating roll at hard difficulty. Ooh, that's an 7, which is a critical success. Dang it. I mean, you are right, Adidas Fiend. It does belong back with its culture, but still. Magpie, I want the PD. But I succeeded that one, so I go to 19. Finally, you hear your name called. Your bid for the altar was found to be the highest. You are now saddled with a large and bulky item, easily the size of a traveler's trunk. Not unmanageable, but definitely more than you'd prefer to lug around. Still, it is surprisingly light considering the number of gemstones worked into the ancient wood. Naturally, those will make it quite valuable, and the strange painted scrawls provoke your interest. Reduce your credit rating by 5 percentile. Go back to 81. All right, back to 81. All right, so now it's all of the items that I was less interested in. I think of the ones that are left, I am the most interested in the journal. So let's see if I can get the journal. That is entry 6. You feel that the information in the journal is essential to your interests, and you cannot help but make a bid. You place your paper with the others and hope that Mr. Warren calls your name when the amounts are compared. Make an appraise or credit rating roll. If you succeed, go to 100. And this is just a regular one. I guess it's because not everyone and their dog wants this one. And this is the one that I roll an freaking 1 on. Come on. I guess my dice are getting warmed up. I haven't used these are from Rowan's palette, but I haven't used them in a while. Not these specific ones anyway. You feel that the knowledge in these pages could very well prove essential to you, so you offer a price that is more than fair. Sure enough, Mr. Warren calls your name and presses the leather-bound tome into your eager hands. Reduce your credit rating by 2 percentile. So for those playing along at home, I am currently at 53 credit rating. All right. I don't know if I'm interested in the crown or the robe. I don't think that I am, because while those are interesting, those are not like specifically different enough to really catch my attention. Although that is, I will admit, me being kind of a meta player a little bit, just because I know that when things stand out, they tend to be more important. So Banyu has the idol, and one of the black suited men has the cylinders, and I have the altar. Well, that's a nice spread of the items out in all of everything. If you are unable or do not wish to bid on any further items, go to 16. I'm going to go ahead and go to 16 because while I can still bid, I don't want to any longer. Your business here is completed. You see the crowd staring covetously at the newly acquired items, and you spot Amelia looking smug and satisfied with a leather bag full of cash. Mr. Warren begins to clear away the tables, while Officer Powell stands by the door and directs people out of the building and into the ever-thickening fog. Though some seem content to stay and socialize, you feel that it would be best to go bed down for the night. Aw, but I want to go have a drink with the widow. All right. So it tells me to go to 26, which makes the wording on the beginning of this a little bit odd, but here we go. While the estate sale seems interesting, you would feel more secure with a roof over your head for the night. You pull somewhat out of the crowd and inquire as to where you can find a room to rent. You're directed a few blocks into town to a modestly priced hotel a few buildings down from Esbury's police station. I don't like that placement. Not with this officer person being a little frustrating. As you enter in from the cool night air, you're greeted by the heat of a roaring fire. The small front room feels stuffy and cramped. The bulk of the space is dominated by the large service counter, behind which sits a wiry-looking wisp of a woman. She turns her wide eyes to you and asks your name, then quotes you a price that's more than fair. With the transaction complete, you haul your thin briefcase, and the altar, up the stairs, unpack it, and settle into your room for the night. It's odd that they didn't write a different one for that. I would have. Just to, underline the fact that you did make a different choice. All right. Over to section 9. You wake in the morning, grateful for the rest. You rise from your bed and take in the modest surroundings that make up your room. The furnishings are sparse, a small, poor-quality dresser, and a cramped and dusty writing desk tucked in the corner. Sitting atop the desk is a plate of eggs and toast, apparently set out for you by the hotel's owner. I don't like that she just walks in while I'm asleep and feeds me. I appreciate the food, but I don't much care for the, walk in without... Okay. The walls are plain and unadorned, save for a single window that faces toward the lake. However, this view is currently blocked by the incredibly thick fog, which has taken on a pale green hue. Your vision is obscured entirely, and you cannot see into the depths of that outlandish green mist. You also notice your personal belongings placed around the room, exactly as you left them the night before. Why did it feel it necessary to mention that it's exactly... Okay. I really hope that she wasn't digging around in my stuff. 106. After getting dressed and eating the modest breakfast set out for you, you're ready to begin your day. You take a moment to consider what that means for you. Your mind turns to Professor Harris. If you're so inclined, you might be able to investigate the circumstances of his death further. Considering that you don't have his widow Amelia's address, you would have to start your search with the official report filed with Officer Powell at the police station. Alternatively, you could take this free time to look through your belongings and examine any items you might have. The hotel owner has been in your room. Yes! So a check of your things might be in order. Or perhaps you have some other reason to look over your possessions. Excuse me? Finally, if you feel that your business in Esbury is concluded, you could always try to find Lance Sanford at the ferry. Duke Fleeg, thank you so much for the subscription. That is so kind of you. I'm a brand new affiliate as of yesterday, so it's so cool to have that available. Thank you so much. I think I'm a little unnerved by the fact the hotel owner has been in my room, so I'm gonna head up to 32 to look over my stuff. A cursory inspection of your personal belongings reveals that nothing is amiss. Sure. All your possessions are just as you left them. While you are here looking things over, you can take this opportunity to more closely scrutinize items bought at the estate sale. Alternatively, you may leave and explore elsewhere if your curiosity is satisfied. After examining each item, you'll be redirected to this entry or given the option to proceed as appropriate. If you have none of the items or are done looking over what you bought, choose to investigate elsewhere. So I have the journal and the altar. I think I want to start with the altar because I think that the altar is going to be a little bit less of a deep dive. So I'm going to bounce over to 128. You examine the extraordinary altar. The most readily apparent feature, beyond its size, are the many gemstones set into its surface. They are of a greenish-yellow color and shine even in the half-light of the room. You also notice strange lettering written in broad strokes along the object's side. The symbols are smeared and sloppily done, suggesting they were written with some haste. What you had taken for paint is, upon closer examination, dried blood. While you cannot be certain, it would appear that this item has been involved in some tragedy. Don't like that. Don't like that. At all. I'm going to go ahead and look at the journal before I venture out into the fog for the day. Oh, this is a long entry. Okay. Though you glanced at the notebook during the estate sale, you haven't had time to properly look it over until now. Reading through the book, you become deeply engrossed and spend the next few hours in study. Knew it. I knew it was going to be more of a deep dive. The time spent yields valuable information. Professor Harris made several trips to India, starting about 12 years ago. During these visits, he went to multiple sites to make observations and recover artifacts. His longest and most profitable trip appears to have been 10 years ago during an excursion to Sarnath, India, where he writes about recovering several items from an active Buddhist shrine. Apparently, Professor Harris had some regrets about this theft, but he couldn't resist taking the artifacts for his personal collection. The descriptions of the items he came across in Sarnath match some of the items at the estate sale last night. The clay cylinders, the gemstone-encrusted altar, and the lizard-like idol are all described in detail in the entries related to his trip to Sarnath. These same items then appear throughout the rest of his journal. He'd clearly been studying them over the past decade and developed something of a fixation with them. It was the idol that initially caught Harris's eye, and according to him, the depiction of the great and grotesque water lizard matched no description of any known Hindu deity. Hoping to find clues to the idol's identity, Harris set about trying to translate the mysterious script on the cylinders and the altar. In doing so, he met with significant difficulty, as the text was only barely recognizable as an archaic dialect of a pre-Sanskrit language. The process was slow and painstaking until about a year ago. At this time, Professor Harris writes of having a strange and enlightening dream. He reports walking in the ancient world from whence these items originated, a grand city of marble walls and onyx streets, of bronze gates and marvelous palaces and gardens. He writes of visiting the 17 tower temples of this ancient city and meeting the bearded gods who dwelled there, sat upon their ivory thrones. Harris calls the strange place Sarnath, despite the sheer impossibility of this. He claims that among the temples, he learned the secrets of the ancient writing. His next entry goes on to describe the odd clay cylinders as the brick cylinders of Cadatheron, though he hadn't yet identified the other objects. The next few pages have been torn from the journal. The entries resume with more mundane matters, though there are still references to the artifacts from time to time. The most recent entries in the journal speak of Harris's daily studies and living with Amelia. It's clear that he cared about her deeply from the way he writes about her, but he laments that his studies keep him from spending the time with her that he would like. Instead, he lavished her with gifts and money, which she was all too happy to accept. He notes that Amelia had never been happier, despite the distance between them. Despite or because of, my guy? Sorry. The last entry to catch your eye is dated a little over a week ago. Apparently, the pages torn from his journal went missing only recently. Professor Harris expresses deep concern at this, as there were no signs of forced entry to his study, and only he and Amelia had access to it, though he was sure he hadn't removed them from the journal himself. You finish your reading by glossing over the last week of the professor's life, which is rather uneventful and peaceful, beyond his continued obsession with the artifacts and his occasional worries about Amelia. That needs a tea break there. So, dreams that are taking him to strange places. Oh, you love to see it. All right, let's bounce back to 32. I have now examined all of the items that I purchased from the estate sale. So, I can go to the police station or I can go to the ferry to leave. The smart option would be to leave, although I suspect the town won't let me at this point. But, all right, I'm going to go to the police station. See if I can't track down Amelia's address. All right. You step out into the greenish mist. You feel it clinging tightly to you as you make your way the short distance to the police station. Upon entering the small brick building, you are struck with a sense of claustrophobia. The walls here are uncomfortably close together, and space is tight. Crammed into the tiny structure are a large desk, several filing cabinets, and a few chairs. A closet-sized holding cell with iron bars sits at the rear of the room. Ooh, I hate how small that feels. Behind the large desk is Officer Powell, smoking a cigar with his feet propped up on the table. His coat is unbuttoned, and his hat lies on top of a stack of papers next to a battered old revolver. He opens one eye and frowns at you, sighing through his cigar as he straightens himself up to look presentable. If you're bothering me right now, I'm going to assume this is important. You mentioned that you would like to see the police report for Professor William Harris's death, to which he replies with a snort. You have no business dealing with that, and even if you did, this is my jurisdiction. Shove off and leave me in peace. He doesn't seem cooperative, but perhaps you could convince him that you have some special circumstances that warrants you looking through his files. Make a fast talk roll. Yeah, I've got the base of 5 in fast talk. This isn't gonna work, but you know, I've been rolling hot, maybe. Ah. I mean, I didn't roll poorly. I rolled a 13 out of 5. Do I spend 8 luck to make it work? Oh, that's an awful lot of luck to use. Should I? I don't know. Because that would take me down to 62 luck. And from what it was saying at the top There will be no chances to recover any spent luck. You know what? I'm here for a good time, not a long time with this character. So I think I'm going... Oh, God, I hate spending that much luck. But we're going to do it. So I'm down to 62 luck to make a fast talk roll. Ouch. That is so much luck. You imply that you know the right sort of people who might ask the wrong sort of questions if you don't get access to that report. You aren't certain whether or not Officer Powell believes you, but you can tell it's more trouble than he's willing to risk. With a look of irritation, he thumbs through the stack of papers on his desk before handing you the file you asked after. Ooh. According to the report, Professor Harris's death is officially a suicide. His death occurred at his home address. He was up late one night in his study where he stuck a gun into his mouth and painted the room red. His body was found the following afternoon by his wife, Amelia Harris. There was no note. The deceased had no prior criminal history, and the gun found at the scene hadn't been used in any reported crimes. Overall, the report is dry and minimalist. All requisite information is present, but only to the barest standard of diligence. Satisfied, you hand the file back to Powell, who grumbles and tucks it away before clearing his throat loudly and propping his feet up. You feel that you have been given a cue to leave, and that Officer Powell will not likely be of much further help. He wasn't of much help now, but sure. To go to the Harris household, go to 90. To return to the hotel, go to 122. I mean, I went to all this effort. I might as well go to the Harris household. You walk into town toward the Harris address. Even knowing the location, it's difficult for you to find your way due to your unfamiliarity with the town and the density of the peculiar green mist. As a result, it's some time before you arrive at the Harris house. As you approach the building, a man steps out of the fog, blocking your path. He is young and thin, with rather angular features and the faint hint of a mustache atop his lip. He's dressed in a dark suit and stares at you from beneath a flat cap. You're an unwelcome surprise. I don't know what you're looking for, but you won't find it here. Your eyes betray you as you glance at the Harris house. The man scowls visibly. Why don't you leave the poor widow alone, you creep? If you want to bother her, you're going to have to go through old Joshua here. Capiche? His hand brushes beneath his coat as if searching for something, but then he stops himself. He pauses for a moment, looking you over once more, before spitting on the ground at your feet and turning away. To call out to Joshua, go to 5. To make your way to the Harris house, go to 55. To heed his warning and return to the hotel, go to 122. I'm gonna make my way to the house. 'Cause... yeah. Despite Joshua's urgings, you feel compelled to speak to Amelia yourself. You approach the front of your house and note your surroundings. The house's exterior hints at the wealth of the occupants, but then again, so do most places in town. Directly across from the residence is a small church, whose religious iconography seems to have inspired the Harrises in the design of their own home. A bronze cross hangs over the front door, and decorative columns line the outside walls of the two-story house. All in all, the architectural style is somewhat Baroque, complete with a pair of carved angels lounging beneath the eaves that are just visible through the strange haze. You knock on the door and wait in the mist for a few moments, hoping for someone to hear you. Eventually, much to your relief, the widow Amelia answers the door. She's wearing a bright red dress, which accents her deep crimson lipstick. She appears to have taken great care over her appearance. She flashes you a smile and invites you inside. The house opens into a large foyer, and you see various crates and bundles stacked high along the walls. Just selling off a few of the more common things. Mind the mess, the porter hasn't come for it yet. She takes you by the hand to lead you past the stacks of items, helping you to pick your way through the deceased Professor Harris's assembled possessions. She takes you into a small drawing room full of antique furniture and offers you some coffee. After settling in and exchanging a few well-mannered pleasantries, you ask in more detail about the late Professor Harris. Amelia sighs theatrically and looks down at her hands. I can't imagine what you want to know about William. I found him in his study with the gun still in his mouth. What more could you want to know? Make a psychology roll. Which I have 50 in. I have a reasonable shot at this. Not with a 95, I don't. That is just shy of a critical fail. Yikes. 31. You nod sympathetically. This woman is clearly uncomfortable talking about her deceased husband, and anyone would want to put that behind them. You pause for a moment, trying to frame your next question with a measure of sensitivity. You open your mouth to speak, but you are interrupted by a loud knock on the door. Amelia jumps up, startled, and stands there for a moment in confusion as the pounding on the door resumes. Police! Open the door! Amelia's face drains white as she goes to answer the knock. Your gut tells you something is wrong here. You feel uneasy about the officer at the door. You tell yourself you're being irrational and on edge, but you have some trouble fighting that feeling. You have precious few moments to react. To ignore your instincts and wait, go to 47. To take this chance to hide, make a stealth roll. That's why I put something into stealth. So I've got 40 in stealth. Reasonable chance. 38. Okay. 298. Over 298, rather. Your hunches are never wrong. Whatever that officer is here for, you don't want any part of it. Glancing around, you weigh your options. You decide to creep toward Amelia and Officer Powell, positioning yourself behind a stack of items that are waiting for the porter. Neither of them seems to notice you as they rush past your hiding place, giving you a clear line to the door. Alternatively, now might be a good time to explore the house. While there is the risk of discovery, it's not as if you have anything to lose by snooping around somewhere you weren't supposed to be. Are you sure, omnipotent narrator, that I don't have anything to lose by being where I'm not supposed to be? Are you sure? For a brief moment, your gaze wanders to the staircase opposite the entryway. The bedrooms and study are likely up there, and you might be able to find some valuable information. All right, do I escape or do I explore? I mean, this is definitely a in for a halfpenny, in for a pound type of situation. Still figuring out the most comfortable configuration. For this particular chair. All right, I can't tell. It's telling me that there's an ad break in progress. Is true? Can y'all hear me, or is that visible? I have no idea anymore. It doesn't show me things. Cool. Love that. Love that for me. I do wish that it would show me on like the screen that I have the screen that I have my live thing that I'm watching. I do wish that I do wish that I could actually see when things are happening. That would make life so much easier. Well, it's interesting because like I have it on my chat that ad break ends in 20 seconds. But we're back, I guess. I don't even know anymore. I mean, I probably should escape. That would be the sensible option. So who says I'm ever going to take that option? So I'm going to go explore. Time is irrelevant. It's true. So, down to 110. Oh boy. You turn your attention to the set of stairs opposite the entrance. You ascend the staircase and see 2 doors, one to either side of you. The door to your left is slightly ajar and no doubt leads to the bedroom. By process of elimination, the door to your right must lead to the study. It seems to be locked and you don't have a key. With enough time, you might be able to get the door open, but it would probably be unwise to spend too long trying, since someone may come to investigate. To enter the bedroom, go to 123. To enter the study, make a locksmith roll. If you succeed, go to 108. Now here's a point where, so I think it actually tells you when you can push a roll. Because here it says, if you fail this roll, you may attempt to push it and roll again, but if you fail a second time, there will be greater consequences. Which is really interesting to me. Oh my god. I was going to say I'm not going to try locksmith because that's not something that anyone puts points into. Eleanor has 50 in locksmith. Like, I knew she had like a criminal background. I didn't realize that it was quite that in depth. So, cool. I'm going to make a locksmith roll. It's there. I might as well try. That is 42 out of 50? 50. Yes. Sweet. I'm going to go into the study and just bop up here. You reach into your pocket and produce the bobby pin that you carry on you for just such an occasion. You insert it into the lock and fumble with it for a few minutes. It sticks and strains, and for several terrible seconds, you fear that it will break in the lock. And then the tumblers give, and the door clicks open. You push your way into the small study and find the room much as you expected. The room opens across from a window, which lets in the pale, greenish light of the mist. This illuminates the room, which is adorned primarily with mostly empty bookcases. There are also several glass display cases throughout the room, but these are similarly empty. At the far end of the room, just beneath the window, is a desk, still littered with the professor's blood-soaked papers. Yikes. Searching through the desk drawers, you find stacks of notes and various personal items. Buried in the bottom drawer, you find an impossibly old scrap of papyrus pressed into a glass frame. All across the ancient document are strange and unusual scrawls. As you pick it up to inspect it, you notice a sheet of paper lightly attached to the back of the frame, bearing the same scrawls as the papyrus, but with annotations in its margins. Presumably, this is a translation of the papyrus's text. As you read it over, you marvel at the impossibility of its content. The papyrus purports to be written by a priest from an unknown city by the name of Ilarnek. Ilarnek? I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I think it's Ilarnek. In this account, the priest records observations of an odd and ugly race of beings who once lived upon an island in the forgotten land of Manar. The document goes into great detail about the fire rituals of these strange creatures and speaks of the haunting dances they would perform in the light of the flames beneath the gibbous moon. And always under the watchful gaze of a sea-green stone idol chiseled in the likeness of a great lizard. The priest's writings go on to mention rituals used to ward off the influence of that detestable creature, rituals performed by humans. The text for the ritual in the annotation is untranslated and is simply rendered in standard characters, so that it reads, Yahanar Nag Niglu I Bakrog. The strange phrase sticks in your mind. You pause for a moment to consider the implications. You carefully detach the translation, fold it up, and put it in your pocket as evidence before exiting the study. You have learned a ritual chant. Note it on your investigation sheet as Ritual Chant Entry 235. When prompted, you may choose to use this chant. If you do so, go to 235. Well, you know, I usually try to avoid learning spells in Call of Cthulhu or Delta Green. That just seems dangerous. All right. But we do have a section here under Arcane Tomes, Spells, and Artifacts. So, Ritual Chant. Entry 235. All right. Cool. Love that for me. Ow. This is what happens when I sit crisscross applesauce in this chair for too long. All right. So from here, I go to 140. You turn around and leave the door closed behind you. Looking down the stairs, you realize that you are not alone. Dominating the entryway is Joshua, red-faced and furious. He has a gun in his right hand, which he quickly aims in your direction. You have just a second to hit the ground before he pulls the trigger. Perhaps your reflexes are quick enough. Cool. My dodge is 50, which is actually higher than my dex would have had it being. All right, 32. I succeeded, so I go to 132. You throw yourself to the floor with all haste, trying to get out of the line of fire. You hear the loud sound of the gunshot as a bullet embeds itself in the wall behind you. You hear a squeal as Amelia comes running after Joshua, begging him to stop shooting and put the gun away. He curses and shoves her aside, but he does holster his weapon. He rushes past her and up the stairs, just as you manage to stumble to your feet. He comes at you, swinging his fist. It's not ideal, but at least with the gun put away, you have a fighting chance. Make a fight brawl roll. Okay, I've got 45 in that, little street girl. I say girl like she's not, 40 years old. That is 21, which is a hard success. Succeed. Oh, go to 21. That's funny. As Joshua towers over you, fists raised in rage, an idea crosses your mind. You pull both of your feet up and drive them into his chest. You kick him back with all your might, sending him tumbling down the stairs. You hear several thumps and thuds as Joshua rolls down the steps. When he reaches the bottom, he lays there, sprawled out and unclearly injured. His groans betray his semi-conscious state, and you walk over to him confidently. With one final kick, you send him over the edge into unconsciousness. Amelia is mortified at the sight. She runs out into the street, fleeing the scene. You quickly search Joshua's pockets and find his wallet, which includes his identification with an address. A search of his other pocket reveals a house key. Several options are immediately apparent. You can continue searching the house, leave in pursuit of Amelia, or make your way to Joshua's home. I think that if I'm going to get anything from Joshua's information before Officer Powell gets involved, who was here not long ago, I think I need to go and search Joshua's house. So I'm going to go do that right quick. Because, I spent long enough looking at this that I think Amelia got a good lead on me. You make your way through Esbury streets, confirming your whereabouts every so often by approaching a building to check an address against the location you're searching for. After some time, you arrive at Joshua's house. You insert the key in the lock and open the door into a small living area. Glancing around, you see a compact living room and kitchen. There are 2 doors at opposite ends of the common area. The door to your left is wide open, and you can see a set of stairs leading down. Oh, I hate that. The door to your right is closed. You assume it leads to the bedroom. I'm going to check the bedroom first. Just because that... I don't want to risk someone being in the bedroom and jumping out at me or something. You open the door to find a bedroom, much as you'd expected. The room clearly belongs to a bachelor, as the only feminine object is a set of lace sleepwear lying across the bed. You look to a nearby nightstand and find several framed photographs of Joshua and Amelia, so you assume the clothes are hers. Peeking out of a dresser in the nightstand is a box of open bullets, as well as several bottles of bootleg whiskey. You scan the rest of the room. The only other object of note is a dresser. You search it and find it to be full of men's clothing, the sort that Joshua would wear. However, as you are rifling through his things, you find an envelope. Turning it over, you see it's unsealed, and judging by the crumpled state of it, the letter inside has been read over several times. You pull out the letter and begin reading. It appears to be a correspondence between Joshua and a Dr. Weber, based out of Arkham. Weber is, apparently, a psychotherapist that Joshua sees on a monthly basis. According to the letter, the past few months have been quite difficult for Joshua. In addition to his criminal activities and his relationship with Amelia, he has been troubled by strange dreams, which Dr. Weber labeled as obsessive delusions. Joshua has a fixation with a particular dream of a beautiful city in a far-off land. He describes the city as made of marble and says that sometimes he wakes up crying because he has to leave it behind in his dreams. He also reports seeing a frightening lizard thing in the water off the shore of this strange city. Sometimes, in the night, it whispers that it knows the way to the city. Though the lizard thing scares him, he listens to the whispers. Joshua professes a deep desire to go to the city, though he doesn't know where it is or even if it's real. For his part, Dr. Weber assures Joshua that these things are completely fictitious and that he must find a way to return to reality and leave the delusions behind. You return the letter to its envelope, then slip everything back where you found it, thinking about how this affects the course of events here in Esbury. Silently, you return to the main area of the house. You may now investigate the basement or leave the house. I have an idea based on what is said was in the dresser. I think I know what's in the basement, but I'm going to go check anyway. You cautiously descend the stairs, which creak beneath your feet. When you reach the bottom, you find yourself in a dank and dusty basement, illuminated by a single dim and flickering bulb that dangles precariously from the ceiling. The room smells faintly of cigar smoke. You notice an old table across from you, on which sits a strange collection of items. A pair of cracked clay cylinders, a gemstone-studded altar with curious scrawls, excuse me, a stack of papers, and an unnatural-looking idol of sea green fashioned in the shape of a lizard-like creature. Behind the table is a still and other bootlegging equipment. There it is. You might consider looking over the items you have found here, or you could simply leave the basement alone. I mean, I'm here. Why would I leave the basement alone? So let's go to 210. You stand over the table of curious artifacts. Oh, actually, here, let me quickly find the thing. Ugh. Nope, never mind. Not going to be able to find the thing that I wanted. That's fine. You stand over the table of curious artifacts, confident that they have something to do with the strange events in Esbury. What strange events? A guy killed himself and now I'm saying they're strange events? Okay. You decide it's best to look them over and glean what information you can from them. You begin by leafing through the stack of notes. You realize it contains some of the same characters that are written on some of the ancient items. You may be able to use these notes to assist in any translation attempts you wish to make. There is also an empty sack on the table that was used to bring these relics here. You are free to load them back up and take them with you. After examining each item, it will be added to your inventory and you will be redirected back to this entry or given the option to proceed as appropriate. You should not select any option more than once. When you are ready, feel free to leave. I'm going to look over the journal first, just because that seems to be the quickest to grab and go if I need to. Scroll, 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 scroll. Okay, so this is... Oh, I spent several hours on this again. So this is the same journal. This is the journal that I bought. And what it's doing here, I really, really would like to know. So it's the same journal with the same very long entry about the dream and being able to translate now. But I'm going to pop back to 110 because I've already read that. So I assume the altar is going to be exactly the same. So I'm going to look over the clay cylinders. You turned the hardened clay cylinders over in your hands, your eyes fallen on the large cracks running through both items. Despite this damage, their solid construction has led to the cylinder's survival throughout the ages. The next most obvious quality is the strange writing that is plastered along the side of each cylinder. It's quite remarkable in that it doesn't resemble any language known to you. Using the notes on the table, you attempt to translate it. Make an archaeology roll, which is again a 70. Okay, that is a 68. Go to 104. You turn the hardened clay cylinders over in your hand and squint to make out the tiny script pressed into their sides. Consulting the notes stacked beside you, you begin to work out a rough translation. The cylinders tell the story of the lake mist green beings of Ib, with their bulging eyes, pouting flabby lips, curious ears, and voiceless mouths. It speaks of the origins of these strange beings, how they descended one night from the moon in a mist, and gave praise to the chiseled sea stone idol of Bokrug beneath the gibbous moon. It goes on to describe their strange city of stone and their ritual destruction of precious metals to appease this detestable water lizard. The tale is perplexing and impossible, but if true, it is rather frightening. You recall the green mist outside and note with alarm that the moon is gibbous tonight. As you place the clay cylinders in the sack, you glance over at the sea green idol nearby and are further chilled by what this might portend. Oh dear. Alright, so I'm going to add... So now I have the journal and the cylinders inside of the sack, which I bought that journal. I should not have had to retrieve it. But then it says, increase your Cthulhu Mythos skill by 2 percentiles. No! Hate that. Hate that so much. All right, back to 210. I'm going to look over the idol this time, I think. I feel like I don't have much time left. Or at least I shouldn't. You look the idol over. It's made of a sea green stone and chiseled in the likeness of a water lizard of some sort. The sculpture is grotesque and hideous, and the depiction of the lizard-like creature unnerves you. Still, the work is extremely well preserved and unquestionably ancient. You feel uncomfortable staring at the alien-looking thing for too long, so you stow it away in the sack out of sight. Okay. Alright, I guess I'll look the altar over, because I feel like I'm going to need it for whatever comes next. Back to 230. Oh, so it says what it said before, that the most readily apparent features beyond its size are the many gemstones. The letters written on it are written in blood, but it finishes with, using the notes in the table, you may be able to piece together a translation of the text written in blood. Okay. That is 37 out of 70, so just shy of a hard success. So I go to 178 with that success. Oh boy. You fix your eyes first on the strange altar and then on the stack of notes. Rifling through them, you are able to piece together the characters written in dried blood on the altar side. Bokrug brings doom to Sarnath. As you look over the altar, you also notice smaller letters, this time written in ink, hidden just beneath the larger bloody characters. The smaller text appears to be some sort of chant. Yahanyar Nog Niglu A Bokrug. The words stick in your mind. As you begin stuffing the religious object into your sack, you note a similar script on the other side of the altar, written in fresh blood. Most of the characters are the same, and you once again consult the notes to finish the translation. You decode the missing word to find the text now reads, Bockrug brings doom to Esbury. Somewhat unnerved, you finish shoving the altar into your bag, knowing that it's evidence of some sort of cult practice or deranged religious belief. The thought does not sit well with you. This module gives you 2 opportunities at least to learn the same chant, which means that's going to be important later. It's the same chant as previous, ritual chant entry 235, which is in my notes currently. Oh boy. It does feel really wrong to read the chants out loud. I feel a little creepy crawly every time I do. All right, I have checked the journal, cylinders, altar, idol, and I've already looked in the bedroom, so I'm going to leave the house and go to 181. You decide that you've seen enough of Joshua's house and that you have no reason to linger here. You exit the building and close the door behind you. You look out into the fog and find it thicker than you remember. You can see almost nothing. Compounding this problem is the darkness, which has completely fallen while you were inside. Armed with new knowledge, you feel prepared to confront what lies ahead of you. You take a few steps out into the street and are shocked to find the town's cobblestones waterlogged. The lake's water level is rising, and Esbury is beginning to flood. Given earlier events, you suspect this may not be entirely natural. Even if it is, the rapidly rising water is a serious threat in itself. You feel a twinge of fear, but overcome it and spur yourself into action. You know you must escape the flood and that you must act quickly. If you know where to meet with Banyo, now is the time you may choose to do so. I have met Banyo, but I don't know where to meet him, so I don't know where to go for that. To search for higher ground and hope to avoid the rising waters, go to 211. To try to outrun the rising tide, go to 194. I think I'm going to head for higher ground. That seems like the best option at the moment with my bag of goods. You try to find somewhere you can wait out the flood, somewhere at a high elevation that won't be consumed by the rising water. Thanks to the darkness and the fog, you won't be able to scan the town's skyline to look for such a place, and will instead have to rely on your memory. I just want to say, I just woke up. So the fact that it's already like dark, either it is winter and so like night is just always kind of around, or there's some time fuckery going on. The only place close that comes to mind would be the nearby church. If the worst should happen, you could climb up into the bell tower to wait out the flood. You rush toward the house of worship. You see its solid gray stonework peeking out at you from the fog, providing a sense of comfort and security. You push open the church's large double doors and slip inside, quickly closing the doors behind you in hopes they will at least buy you some time before the water seeps in. You rush to the stairs leading up to the bell tower and climb them as quickly as you can. You soon find yourself looking out over Esbury. The town itself is shrouded in mist, but from this high vantage point, you can see over the fog to the lake below. Large, undulating waves break the surface of the normally placid waters, and the stars and gibbous moon are brightly reflected from the dark backdrop. Finding yourself in relative safety, you finally have a moment to pause and reflect. You take a deep breath, bowing your head in thought, or perhaps prayer. Your mind is in a whirl, but eventually a single thought breaks through, determining your course of action. If you know a ritual chant, now is the time you may choose to use it. Check the entry number noted on your investigator sheet, then go to it. I mean, we're in this deep. Let's do a chant. I've got all the stuff, I think. I hope. The words of the ritual chant force themselves into your mind. You stare blankly at the reflection of the moon and stars upon the rising waters of the lake. Your lips move as if controlled by someone else, automatically uttering the strange syllables of the unfamiliar words. Yahai yar yag niglu a bakrug. You recite the words in a slow, monotonous voice, speaking the phrase 10 times before you stop. You feel strangely tired after this, so you sit on the belfry's stones and look out over the town. The water has risen so high, over the tops of many of the buildings in Esbury, and you're positioned on one of the few landmarks still above water. You're certain that much damage has been done here. At least the water is still and placid now, apparently returned to its normally peaceful state. The unnatural green mist seems to be dissipating as well. It still lingers here and there, but by the light of the gibbous moon, you can see the fog starting to thin out. You take a deep breath, pondering what is to come next. If you have the strange idol, go to 205. Exhaustion overtakes you. You lean back, close your eyes, and drift into a deep slumber. Your sleep is disturbed by strange and horrific dreams. You see a shining city of marble, onyx, and lustrous gems. You see this magnificent city in all its splendor, sitting next to a placid lake. And then, in an instant, it's gone as the water rises up to swallow it. The lizard thing of the idol, given life and power, surges up from the water. The being eyes you with malicious sentience as the waters swell and consume you. You exist in this state for what feels like an eternity, drifting through the sunken ruins alongside the horrible lizard thing. It eyes you closely, scrutinizing your every movement. But it never acts, merely watches you with checked malevolence. As you stare into its eyes, you begin to wish that it would simply consume you so you wouldn't have to be under its watchful gaze any longer. This becomes a maddening desire, and you find yourself willingly swimming toward the thing. It opens its jaws to receive you, revealing row after row of needle-like teeth. Just as you're about to offer yourself to the creature, you finally wake. You find yourself dangling over the edge of the belfry, about to roll into the flooded town below and lose yourself in the waters. You quickly pull back toward the center of the platform for safety. As you do so, a glimmer within your sack catches your eye. You reach inside to find the source and extract the sea-green stone idol. It shimmers with a bluish-white light of angry intensity. Looking at it pains your eyes. You consider throwing the damnable thing into the water below, but something stops you. A thought creeps into your mind, taking shape and driving your actions. Oh boy, time to make a POW roll. My favorite. What is her POW? Her POW is 50, so I got basically the chance of a coin flip. 7, which is a critical success. Have a lovely dinner, Knitting Daddy. Good to see you. And I'll probably have the VOD up later somewhere else if you want to see how the rest of this goes, because I feel like it's about to go very badly. This should be fun. Oh, gosh. Go to 119. I'm going to pause here for a second because it's telling me that there's an ad break in progress. I have no idea how true that is, but my voice could use a rest anyway to get some tea. And as everyone returns, I have a cat screaming outside of my closed door. Shocking no one. Love my cats very much. All right, down at 219, since I made that POW roll. Your mind clouds over once more, as if dreaming again. You see the strange city in your mind's eye. Your vision passes over precious metals exchanging hands between exotic merchants. Discs of silver and gold move from buyer to seller before disappearing into bags and boxes. You glide formlessly over the city and out into the surrounding lands, where you see the citizens marching in lines, carrying precious metals to the city from the mines. You float above it all and look out to the lake, where you sense brooding hatred and disgust. Your awareness snaps back to reality as you stare into the idol's light. You make the connection between those precious metals and this grotesque lizard thing's disdain. If you have a gold bar, go to 239. I do not. Otherwise, go to 234. Okay. A thought takes shape in your mind and clarity takes hold, but the thought is not your own. You see visions of the strange reptilian beast, that detestable water lizard. You stare into its eyes, hypnotized as it hisses at you, beckoning you forward. You heed its call. Your feet move you forward, carrying you over the edge of the belfry and into the water below. You don't thrash about. You don't swim, or struggle, or resist. You simply sink, welcomed into the risen water's embrace. You have died, led to your demise by the will of Bakrug, the great water lizard. The great old one has ensured that doom has come to the little lakeside town. There will be no survivors. Eventually the idol will be found and the process will begin again. But this is of no concern to you. Your visit to Esbury is over. The end. Well, that wasn't where I expected that to go. There are so many, there's so many ways to die. I got a lot of pictures from this particular module, saved, because I scrolled through and did, quick checks for that. There are so many ways to die. It is ridiculously funny. Lots of ways to die, not many ways to succeed besides, hey, be smart, run. But yeah, that's the story of Dr. Eleanor Woods and how she drowned in the risen lake water. I may revisit this again just to see if I can do something different, but that's her story, at least for right now. And I've been going for almost 2 hours at this point, so I think I am going to call it for the night. Thank you all so much for joining me. I trust that your journey back through the Mushroom Circle will be safe. Try not to do any strange chants that you may find along the way, and I will see you next time. Bye.